Ready to start. Wonderful. So I'm going to call the meeting to order. This is the regular meeting of the Willington Board of Education for August 8th, 2023. It is 7:02 p.m. And we start our meetings as usual with the Pledge of Allegiance. So if you would all please join me, that would be great.
Never mind, it's just.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the
United States of America
and
and
to
to
the
the
republic
republic for which it stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty
justice.
and justice for all.
Thank you. Okay, we start our meetings and close our meetings with time for the public to present and speak to the board. It's not a back and forth, but we do welcome you to raise your hands using either the raise hand button under the reactions on the bottom of your Zoom screen, or to come on screen physically and wave at us, and we will know to unmute you so that you can speak. I see Nick has his hand up.
Hey, Nick Tella, 49 Myrtle. Just want to have one thing in particular on the record. It's in regards to FOIA, which I know you guys will talk about a little bit later. Just want to read section, chapter 14, section 212. And within there's a subsection that says, quote, the public agency shall waive any fee provided for in this section when, and there's numerous things, but touch upon one in particular. Let's see. The person requesting the records is an indigent individual, end quote. It then goes into discussion about other reasons that the agency shall waive fees. My concern is that the department does not have a chart to refer to, just like any other state agency has, to see if a person qualifies for a fee exemption. I would recommend the board implement, or the department implementing, a chart that the state programs such as Husky, SNAP, I think Heating Assistant Program has, and other programs currently is just set up as though the lawyer will determine if someone gets the exemption, which now is leaving it up to the bias to come into play, and some may be discriminated against. Two other points I just had quick here. I think the mental health grant is awesome for the town. I just hope that the department can have a plan in place that we can properly exit the program if we don't get an extension after 3 years. And the last thing I have here is the survey that you guys had conducted was open for people to vote numerous times, which could skew the results. Thank you very much.
I don't see any other hands up, but you can come on screen or raise your hand if you're interested, or else there's time at the end of the meeting. Okay, seeing none, it is August. I recognize not everybody is using their fun and entertainment evening of being online with all of us, but hopefully you'll stay through the meeting and we'll hear from you at the end. So with that said, let's move on to the chairman's report. My only report is to note that we do have time for registration for the CABE conference in November. If people are interested in attending again this year, it's important for you to let Phil know. Even if you are up for election, we can still register and possibly swap you out if you do not get reelected. So it is not a waste of money to register early if you are interested in attending. It's both a Friday and a Saturday. So we encourage carpooling, but you may attend one or both days. So if you are working during the week, there is still the Saturday event that is worthwhile. So I want to encourage all of you to look at that. Did you have questions, Anne?
Yes, the date.
I don't have it at my fingertips. I can pull it up and I'll put it, I'll send an email out. I'll make
Okay,
sure everybody
thank
gets a
you.
copy. It's usually the third weekend in November, but Thanksgiving's a little early this year, so it might be kind of the 18th and 19th, but I'm just doing that from memory. So we won't give that 100%. Will depend on the email, and I'll make sure everybody has a copy of that. But you should call, if you're interested, you should call Phil's office and talk to Brenda, and she'll be collecting the names to do the registration. Okay, that is it for the chairman's report. Next on the agenda is the communications, followed by the superintendent's report.
So we have that. I had emailed you. We have the FOI request from Nick Telma. It's regarding Board of Education lawsuit. It's our appeal. And I should say because I don't know that anybody was on the board at the time. This is from 2015. And obviously, as he said, I'm working with the attorney to see if we can fulfill his request.
Okay.
And that is the only communication I have.
And that is fair, because I think you are correct. None of us were on the board at that point. So, okay. Next, we have the superintendent's report. So you can move on, Phil.
Yep. So first thing I want to talk about is staffing. We actually, I don't even know if I want to say this out loud. I want to knock on wood before I say it. We have 3 open positions right now, and it's 1 paraprofessional and the 2 utility staff. I think we might be one of very few districts that don't have a bunch of open positions. I don't even want to say that out loud, but it's where we're at. Allie Nizer, who's one of our utility members, she resigned to follow. She has her bachelor's to follow her career, her area of study. So she'll be moving on. She's been with us from the get-go of the utility staff members. So obviously we wish her luck in the future. And then our other utility staff member, Tom O'Brien, is going into education. He'll be doing a student teaching, so he's moving on as well. I am interviewing someone with has been out there on Facebook, other places. I have an interview for someone tomorrow. And then I also have a second and third candidate that came in today. So we have people applying for the utility positions, which is great. Arthur, I know you had a question about this, and I think it's, if you want to share your thought about, there was a question about their hourly rate.
Yeah, so I went over the documents that you sent me, Phil, and I went over the contract, and I went over the what is it called, the MOA.
MOA, yeah.
That the Board of Ed did for these positions, and as somebody who subbed in the school before being on this board, I know all of what Allie and all of what Tom did, and they did a lot. I mean, a lot, especially in with the kids. I know Allie, and like, you gave Allie a couple months and she learned all the kids' favorite lunches and everybody in every class, and she was fantastic. And I think aligning their pay with the clerk pay, I believe it's clerical aid position, I think it's very low, and I think raising the bar even a little bit would yield greater results. I did some quick math on it, and raising it up to even just the category, I understand that they're not paraeducators, but the category of pay of a level 0 paraeducator would have only cost another $4,800, and probably to somebody in this position who's either going to be either just out of school or going to school, or maybe looking to do something not exactly full time, I think that almost $5,000 would make a huge difference, and I think it would reflect how we appreciate what they would do in the school. I mean, I guess I'm not sure if there's a way to change it, or if you're willing to change it. I'm looking at this now and I just see that it expired in June. I don't know if you re-up the MOA for the same price, so there's no way to move it, but I just feel that for the work that Tom and Allie did, seeing that pay was actually very surprising, and I was hoping it was a little bit more.
So Arthur had and I kind of went back and forth on a few emails about this is a contractual position. There was some comments on Facebook around this too, and I wasn't going to get into it on Facebook. It is a contractual position, so it's negotiated. We did it through a memorandum of understanding, or that's basically what it was. Now that it's in your budget, we're going to have to do some sort of a addendum to the contract to add it in. I've already talked to the WESS union president here. add it in as a secondary thing. My suggestion will be that even though I have people in the hopper, that if the board wants to take the negotiations committee, you could consider where, if you want to change the classification. So as you know, the pay classifications vary. There's a nurses section, there's a secretary section, there's all sorts of classifications. They're all in the same unit, bargaining unit. And because it is a bargaining unit, you have to negotiate it. We do have to negotiate not really negotiate, it's an addendum that we're already going to do. It's just what you want to match. What I will say, Arthur, is the ad does say, and this is a little bit different, is the ad does say the starting pay, meaning the lowest that it could be. With experience, I am able to hire someone at a higher level. If they have experience with kids, if they have experience with management, whatever, we're asking them to do based upon their job description. I did not have that ability through the MOU because they wanted it to be at the lowest classification. Now that it would be, it's going to be in addition to the contract. I actually, as superintendent, when I hire someone, I can pay them based upon their experience. So you can, we're going to have to do an MOU at some point or an addendum at some point. I've already had the conversation with the union side. It's just going to be a matter of whether you want to do that through just allow me to hire as is if they have more experience, or whether you want to go through that. It's not even really a negotiation. Just have that subcommittee meet to discuss it and then share what their thoughts are over to the union so we can draft an MOU or an addendum.
Okay, so just looking at so the question becomes, you have the ability to hire more, it's just you would still have to follow the step numbers, correct?
So I'm going to give you an example. Someone has 10 years of experience, they get credit, so they move down the steps. They don't start at step one. So, depending on what the scenario is, sometimes it's a step a year, depending on what the position is, and depending on how a superintendent chooses to apply the steps. That's kind of my ability to make those decisions. But I have a history. If you have experience, I'm not starting you at the bottom unless I contractually have to start you at the bottom. I'm going to pay you based upon your value. And I credit people for their years of experience, and typically we're creative. It's you look at a job description, and if your skills match and your experience match what we're looking for, I can set you up. Even though you might not have some experience with kids, if you have those other skills, you get experience for it. If it's going to help us within the school district.
Okay. I'm hopeful that.
I'm sorry, Arthur, go ahead.
I just want to finish. I'm just hopeful that we can hire for a bit more, because I just as a level set of understanding, being paid at the lowest amount was about $32,500, and in this state, and especially in this inflation, that's very low. And personally, when you have people working with your kids, I would be more than willing to pay them a little bit more to make sure that they do a good job.
Okay, Anne, I saw your hand up.
Phil or Arthur, whoever knows the answer to this, what would the difference be between what we say on an hourly basis, between what we now pay according to that MOU and what the starting cost would be for an assistant or a para? What would be the difference between those hourly rates?
There's a huge range, because a para may start at, and I don't have this right in front of me, so don't quote me on this, but a para may start at 17 and work their way up to 30, depending on where they are. So this starting range in this utility staff member, they match a position that used to be in district. It looked different because it was just basically duties and photocopies.
Yeah.
That very, very different position. And so if this person has their bachelor's, we can have them sub. If this person comes in and they don't have their bachelor's, but they're proving to us that they can lead a class of kids I have the ability to make a recommendation to the State Department of Education to get a waiver to allow that person to then sub in a classroom. We don't do that if they're not qualified or not prepared to do it. But the starting range is in that minimum wage range, that $15. You know, if they're experienced, 60, 80 cents, $1 per year about, but don't quote me on that, and I don't have the numbers right.
Okay, yeah,
So the difference in step 0 between a clerical aide and a educational paraeducator is $2.34 from 1528 to 1762. That's
okay.
what I based my estimate on, was the 0 level. And I understand that there can be differences now, because we have more free. There's more freedom in the hiring now.
Correct.
But I based all what I was looking at on that 0 step number.
And that MOU now is a moot point. It doesn't exist
Right.
because it becomes a position in the union. And they're well aware of that. It's just a matter of where we want to match it. If you, and I'm very cautious of this right now, if you want to have a deeper conversation of what that job entails, I don't want you to give away negotiation pieces that you
Right,
shouldn't be giving away. If you listen, I have a history too of supporting our staff. And I agree, Arthur, we should pay people where we can get them to keep them, and especially if they have experience. And that's why I'm recommending, if you want to have a deeper discussion, I think you should do it in your negotiation subcommittee, and then that can go forward to the WESS union. And if I hire someone in the meantime, you can always make that MOU or addendum retroactive, which is not rocket science. That's pretty easy to do.
Okay, that was my question.
the other possibility would be to have them join the para group.
That is why you have to have if you want to have that deeper discussion.
That's discussion, okay,
Yes, and I think that understanding what those job descriptions look like and how they're the same and how they're different it's important to know. So if I guess and sorry, Michelle, I wasn't sure if this was going to come up or not, or because where Arthur and I landed on this. I think my recommendation would be, if you want to have deeper discussion about it, we can have a subcommittee meeting, whether that is the negotiations group, that's not recorded and live for everyone to see our negotiation strategy. But I think we have the understanding that, we want to make sure we pay people where the value is. So is that,
can I make a motion?
It's not a motion, and it
No, we
doesn't have
don't
to
need
go
a
that way.
motion to
No,
do
it's not a decision that way. I'm not seeing any opposition to moving this to the nominations committee. So unless someone wants to speak up now.
I'm sorry, Michelle, did you say nominations committee, or is it supposed to be?
negotiations, sorry.
Negotiations, sorry.
That's
Sorry.
okay. I just
I
want to
got
make,
the N, thank you.
You catch.
Negotiations committee. So not seeing any discussion on that. We'll move on to the next item, the agenda, and move that to the subcommittee discussion.
Yep, perfect. And I'll schedule that. Thank you so much.
Okay.
Okay, so we hired Kyle Mullaney as our new 6th grade math teacher. We hired Hannah Wood as our new 4th grade teacher. I will tell you that Hannah worked as she did her student teaching in Willington and came back to us. Says something. We hired Julie Chari for CES Art. That's a part-time position, and she's excited about that. We hired 2 special education teachers. Shortage area, huge hires, just finding folks, which is great. So Jen Brierton for HMS and Haley Collins will be at center school. So I'm going to tell you that we looked at the list of open special ed positions, and it was in the 300 range the other day. So the fact that we are fully staffed, and again, I'm going to knock on wood, it's amazing. And I'm going to tell you, they're coming to us because our staff members are talking about the work that we're doing and the support that we're providing. I think that's really, really important for people to hear. So that's the hires. I had emailed you about all the current projects going on this summer. There's new carpeting and stair treads. They're almost complete at Hall School. They look amazing. The hallway has transformed with that. Siemens has the new fire panel in at center, minor things remaining to do. And then they're moving, I think it's the end of this week or early next week. They're going to be installing the one at Hall, which is great. You can actually look out the windows now at Center and Hall where the windows were fogged. All those fogged windows are gone, which is great. So they've been replaced. The new security camera addition was completed at Hall. They're doing their final touches now. This rain has killed our sidewalk work. They have planned on pouring today at Hall School. It didn't happen. I'm hoping that it's going to happen tomorrow, but they'll move to Center when it's done. But obviously, concrete work and water, you got to be patient. So we'll see where that goes. And then MCOR is buttoning up some really final details on the work that they did around ventilation and heating projects at both buildings. I'm going to tell you the buildings look really good. There's been some painting, they're cleaning. The camp is wrapping up and the gym at Hall School, and then they'll put the final touches on. But the crew's done a really good job, and our contractors have done a really good job. So that's exciting. As far as staff development goes and convocation, we are putting our final touches on our professional development plans for those first few days. It's August 28th to the 30th. Obviously, you'll get an invitation, but all the board members are invited to come out to convocation. Really, the section that you would come to is approximately an hour, 8 a.m. on August 28th. It's that Monday. We do have three days for professional development. It's broken up into some classroom setup time, some professional development. We have the meet and greet on Wednesday. So all of those things are the final pieces are coming together on that. I do have an enrollment update for you. We currently have 213 students at Center School and 184 students at Hall. And that's what we know for the start of the fall of 2023. What I'll tell you is the last week in August, right before school starts, there's people going both directions. They come in late and they leave late. So it's where we are today. The other thing I wanted to let you know is that we have 2 additional out-of-district special education placements. They are not budgeted. And what I'll tell you is that, I believe we're going to have 4 total. And the non-lapsing account that we have will be able to cover those additional 2. That's the purpose of that account. And I will tell you that's as long as the Board of Finance allows the Board of Ed to approve that money to go back in. Because if you remember, we had like 250,000. We used 150 to offset the current budget. It brings you down to about 100,000. We said we'd return money at the end of 22-23. I can see that money in the budget. As long as that money comes back into the non-lapsing account to max it back out, we will be able to cover that without any additional major challenges to our budget. So stay tuned. We will know more. I will say September, October meetings around that non-lapsing account, and as the business office wraps up the end of the year still for 22-23. And that's all I had for my superintendent's report.
Are there any questions for Phil on the superintendent's report? Arthur?
Bill, any chance you'd take me around Hall and show me the improvements?
Once everything's done, I was going to send an email and just invite the board in small groups, because I would like for you to see the work that's been done, because it has jazz up. Just listen, paint, tile, carpeting, those things, like it just does jazz up a building in classroom spaces. So it can't be more than 3 at a time, but I'll have Brenda schedule once the work is done.
Okay, great.
Yep.
Anne?
How are we doing with kindergarten? How many kindergartens do we have scheduled?
Honestly, I don't have that answer for you off the top of my
Okay,
head right now.
sorry.
I only did the total today.
Okay.
I couldn't even tell you if it's gone up or down, to be honest with you.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Okay, very good. Thanks.
Yep.
And honestly, they're the ones that frequently come in at the end of August when people realize, oh, it's almost September. So
Yeah.
we'll be looking forward to seeing what that number is. So if you'd make a note, we can have that reported out again in September.
Yeah, I'll pull once we get closer, probably next meeting, I can share all of the grade levels, the numbers at each grade level.
Perfect. Thanks. Okay, then let's move on to the financial report.
You got it. So I think on the agenda, it says July. This could say July or August, to be honest with you. This is a weird time of the year just to show this. The main item to be aware of regarding the financial report at this time of the year is staffing. Because it's not fully updated. So as new staff comes in, as staff leaves, it impacts several programs. So, when you look at what's there, the business office is wrapping up last year. As new staff comes in, they're adding them. The salaries are going to be different, right? For new people and compared to the people that left, they may or may not take benefits. So really program 1, program 2, program 3, and program 10 fringe, you can't look at a bottom line right now. The purpose of this is just to start the picture for you. We'll make the adjustments. I'm hoping that we'll have a really good picture come September, but I can guarantee it in October, because it takes them a while to make sure, once all the benefits kick in, what people are taking, whether they're waiving or not. It takes time. So, obviously the outplacements are not, encumbered yet. The things that are typical for this time of year, the salaries that we do know, the transportation we know, the health salaries that we know, any PD that we've already scheduled, the utilities are already done, and same thing with maintenance, and then Novus. So those regular things that we can encumber, we already have. It's just the staffing. Staffing, as you know, is a big part of the budget. It's not to that point yet. It's not that time of the year.
Okay, thanks, Phil.
Yep.
Next up is the food services financial report. If you
Just gonna
wanna
close
swap
this
out.
tab. Can you see the food services?
Yep, we can.
Perfect. So the bottom line in this food service report, this account is flush. It's got lots of money in it, and it's due to the reimbursements from the government from COVID. When everything was free and we were getting reimbursements, this account bounced back big time. So I was really concerned about this fund balance in 2018, and I vocalized that because it was so low. Now I'm concerned because it's so healthy. We are hiring an additional person to really increase, and I'm hoping it's going to be around breakfast options. But that's, Stephanie's decision. We've had conversations about that, but to increase options that we're providing. When you have the additional person to cut up more things or prepare things, it will help out. So, but that's honestly not going to make a dent in over a $200,000 fund balance. This says 186. Really, when you look at this fund balance end of the year, it's well over $200,000. So I will be frank with you. I'm working with the state, and I'll share more on this in a minute, to make sure everyone gets free lunch. But at this time, because it's only students who are currently free or qualify to be free or reduced, we're going to continue to get reimbursements. The state's going to pay for them as well. So this account is going to continue to grow. It's a good problem and a bad problem. So all I can say about this account really is it's healthy. We should be able to have my dream was 20,000 at the time when we were living, really paycheck to paycheck as we were paying people and what was coming in. Now we're times 10 that. So, it's something that we need to look into.
Thanks, Phil. Donna, if you want to come off mute.
Yeah, I have a question. So I agree that the amount of cash sitting there is quite healthy. Is there an opportunity to use some of that money to do if there are necessary kitchen upgrades that might be kind of, obviously and I'm making this up, if they needed a new refrigerator or a new freezer or microwaves or whatever that it might be, that are kind of one-time big items, now might be the time to take a look at that, and if it's permissible to use that, since it will be directly related to food handling and production and preparation and storage.
Yes. So the simple answer is yes, we can utilize it towards things that are not fixed. So that the refrigerator, the oven, anything that be, if it needs to be repaired, we've been doing that all along, which is great. And Stephanie's been pretty frugal. She's gotten more equipment. It's something where and I just fired off an email today, trying to figure out how we can make sure we spend the funds without impacting eligibility for other students. There are, let me tell you, a lot of rules when it comes to food services and how you spend your money. And so I will keep you posted on this one. Obviously, equipment is one of them, if they need something, but I don't also want to spend money on equipment if we don't need it. So we hear a lot when we have some of our refrigeration units repaired. They're like, don't ever sell this because you'll never get something as good as this. It's easy to repair. We have several of those items, and so we've kept them and we just keep repairing them as something comes up. But I agree, there's some money there for big ticket items. We just are waiting for a state response to say, how do we bring this balance down in a reasonable manner, where we're not going to get penalized for it, or it's going to hurt our free and reduced application.
Could it also be maybe increasing the quality of the food that is purchased?
Absolutely. Yep. And she's been doing that all along. It's the bigger thing for her to offer more options was the person. And so she's doing that now. And she's looked at some of the farm to table kind of look fors that are around, where there's something around that, but there's so many rules around that as well. So we're working on it. And it's nice to be able to say you need to spend some money on something. We just want to make sure we're doing it on the right things so we don't get penalized.
Arthur?
I apologize because I don't know the rules on this, Phil. Is this fund anything like the non-lapsing fund where there can only be a certain amount and certain amounts have to be spent, or is there anything preventing us from, like, I'm not advocating saving, when we need to spend money, but having this money 5 years down the road when something actually does break would be beneficial as well. So I'm just wondering if there's any rules around that.
I mean, my honest answer is if they continue to kick in funds for reimbursements for all students to have breakfast, which is what they're doing, and all reduced students are free, so they're kicking in more. This number is not going to, like, we would have a really hard time to bring this number down. We were doing a lot last year, and it still increased another, I think it was $50,000. So I do want a buffer. I agree with you. I want a buffer, and my realistic buffer 5 years ago of $20,000 was going to be really hard to achieve without charging parents and students a lot of money for lunch. I was really against that. Now I think a realistic buffer, you could probably double that, and it gives you a nice buffer for equipment, for whatever your needs are. But I honestly think it's going to be really hard to bring that number down. That's why we need the state to give us some responses about what does count, what can we spend those dollars on.
Okay.
Stay tuned.
And if I remember correctly, Phil, there was discussion at that time 5 years ago that the state was going to require that we raise prices a nickel each or something, that they were not going to let us even hold it steady. So there's certainly a lot of restrictions on what we can, and certainly keeping the money in that account and spending it down slowly. There's no harm in that either.
Yeah,
So,
and that'll be on the later in the agenda, the actual price.
Yep. So let's wait and see what the state comes back with, and we'll give another report back on this. Other
Perfect.
questions on this? Okay, then we will move on to next is the mental health grant award.
So we applied for a competitive mental health grant through the state to provide additional support to our students. I will tell you, all of our mental health professionals, all of them have full caseloads. It's great that we have the support that we have, but we were really pushing on them hard. This grant came out, I think it was an ARPA grant that came out, it was competitive. We came up with a creative solution and we were funded. So we were notified that we received a 3-year grant It's $217,000. It's a lot of money. And we wrote it so that we would be able to hire a mental health specialist, and really with the purpose to promote attendance, homeschool communication, and overall school engagement. If you looked at our numbers, the number of students who are in that truancy range now, missing 10+ school days, has significantly gone up. We're not the only district. It's very common across the board. And so this person would help provide, that school engagement piece to make sure they have connections. They'd be providing some individual and group prevention and intervention strategies. The way we wrote this, and we didn't want to share this too loud because we wanted to be creative in this. I share it now because we got the grant. We don't want to try and find someone with certifications, because this is a huge area of need right now, and you won't find someone with certification. And so we wrote it that they don't need certification, but they do need their bachelor's degree, because this group of folks, they need hours of experience. So we wrote it so if we find someone who has their bachelor's degree in social work, psychology, some of those, one of those related fields, they would be able to come to work for us while they work towards their master's, or get their hours in, really. So the first 2 years of this grant is fully funded, and we wrote in the salary and we wrote in benefits. This does not have to match one of go into an MOU. I talked to the union about that, but we will match benefits that are matching the WESS contract. So if this person does take benefits, they would match that. All right. The third year of the grant, and this is what I'm going to ask the board to do, is it is funded 70% in year 3. So the board would have to commit to, depending on what the salary is, but I think it's approximately $24,000 between the salary and benefits. That's the balance of the 30%. I don't have any applications yet. We just put it out, but I'm looking for the Board of Ed to approve that I can hire someone and fill the position, knowing that in that third year, you're going to have to put some money in the budget for it. If you don't, I don't know how that would work, and I'm not sure I would want to fill the position. So that's where this position's at.
So Phil, you're saying that you want to hire someone for a 3-year contract. And so you want to kind of explain to them the situation, and in order to encourage them, and certainly recruiting anyone these days is especially hard. You want to make your recruitment meaningful and not have somebody jump ship.
Yes, and the board has to make a 3-year commitment, I believe, for the grants. And so I don't want to be penalized for that. So I don't really think you can take years 1 and 2 and go, nah, we're done. We're going to turn back the money from year 3 so we don't have to pay. I don't think that's how this works, which is why, I didn't want to have your commitment before not knowing if we were going to get the grant or not. Because to be honest with you, a lot of districts applied, and the money keeps rolling in, which is good. So I don't necessarily need the same person for 3 years, but I want to know that you support the grant and for 3 years, knowing that in that third year, you're going to have to pay 30% of that cost. So it's like, the way they break it down, it's $217,000. The first 2 years they see is $80,000 each year, and then the third year is $56,000. You've got to cover the $24,000 difference. It might not be that much, depending on if the person waives benefits, but you want to spend every dollar of that grant. Otherwise it just goes back.
Right. So what you want then is a motion to accept the grant and the terms of the grant, understanding that we would then have to provide the additional match of 30% in year 3.
You are correct.
Got it. Donna, I see your hand is up.
Yeah, I don't think I fully understand. So it's a mental health grant award to reduce truancy?
So the folks, the students that truancy is one of the examples. So students that are not coming to school for it could be a boatload of reasons. This is a person that can help make phone calls, that can hold hours with students. They would be supervised by our other, mental health professionals, and evaluated by Marcia. But this is another set of hands to, take some of that load off of our mental health professionals. Because I'll tell you, they're going to burn out and they're going to leave. And this is why there's such a shortage area. So this is one of, a solution for us that was creative, that we thought we actually could find someone. It was posted. Yeah, I want to say the days are flying. Sorry, today's Tuesday. It was posted yesterday, maybe Friday. I don't remember. Sorry. And the very next day I was someplace and someone said, I have someone that might be interested in that position. They just graduated and actually they have their master's. So we're not sure what we're going to get. We have to, work within it, but basically they would be on staff. And I hope this mental health crisis is decreased significantly over the next few years. Obviously we can't guarantee that, but all we can guarantee is to put resources where we know it's happening. So when we have 40, we used to have a small handful of kids missing 10 days. And I'm not talking about that they were sick. We have, some kids now that are missing 20, 30 days of school, and that's a significant number of days. So I'm using that as an example for truancy to make connections with parents, to make connections with a kid. We've talked about home visits. We've talked about running lunch groups. We've talked about, any of those things that we're currently offering our students. This person could help do that. Tallying data, all of those things. This is what this position would be doing.
So this isn't really a truancy thing. It's providing services to the students so they want to come to school. This is not like a truancy officer.
Correct. 100% correct. Yes.
Going, door to door knocking and saying,
No.
show up or out.
This is a relationship expert. Let's call them a relationship expert. This is someone that we want to bring in to make sure we can help, because it takes time. When you have a student come in late that didn't want to come to school that day, it's always best to have someone meet them at the door to help them transition to the classroom, to give them a few minutes to support them. That takes time. When you have other crises in the buildings, or you have 10 kids with that, you need people. And so once that student is in a good place for learning, that person goes, this person would go elsewhere. So, when our school social worker is doing that, our counselor is doing that, our school psych is doing that, we have a lot of students that are in need, and this person would help with that. So no, they're not a truancy officer, no.
Okay, and then just as a follow-up question, for the students that have a history of missing excessive number of school days, not for a physical illness where they would get a doctor's note, has any of that information been compiled as to why, so that they can get to the bottom of, and I'm making this up because it's silly, if 90% of those kids say that they can't bear to go in the school building because of the color of the doors, and it's, that's like, it's a silly example, so change the color of the doors. Is there simple things that have come out of this that can be addressed to, at least maybe take the edge off and help out?
So typically they're more complex. But when I'll give you an example. So we just had our admin meetings in the last couple of weeks with my administrators and planning for next year. And we go through all the climate surveys, and we take those really seriously because we get a lot of good feedback. Sometimes you have to take a deep breath because the feedback is harsh sometimes. And sometimes the feedback is really nice to hear. I'm going to give you an example. And it's one of the things that has come up both from students and from parents, and some comments about broken locks in bathrooms and gaps in doors. We're taking that seriously. And I've put my administrators on that to say, I'm going to walk your buildings before school starts. And I want to make sure all of those comments that were made, I can't see those things that they're fixed. And sometimes things break and it takes a day or two or whatever to get parts. That's not what we're talking about. But if I see repetition, that could be something where a kid doesn't want to come to school. It's just it seems like a silly reason, but it could be important to them. Those are things we're addressing. So yes, we're addressing those things. There's oftentimes a lot of reasons. It's bless you. It's communication with parents. We have it at both schools, and I did not have this when I was a principal, but they do now at both schools. They have student assistant teams or attendance committees. They're going through attendance on a very regular basis and discussing kids and putting intervention plans in place and talking to parents so that they understand we need kids in school. We can't educate them if they're not in school. And so those things are in place. This person would help that process.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. Arthur?
There we go. So I do have a couple questions, and the first one's probably fairly obvious, but I'm going to ask it anyways. This person would work across both schools, correct?
Correct.
Well, just want to get that one out of the way. I'm concerned when you mention home visits for somebody in this position without the certifications. So
Wouldn't be alone. Yeah.
what you mean when they would go with somebody else from the school, like Alan or somebody?
Correct.
Okay. Okay. And I don't know if you can give an example. I'm just trying to think of what might cause that besides, absences.
So I'll give you an example. So sometimes morning routine really disrupts a child's plan to get ready and go to school. And so we might help a parent who asks for help. Hey, can you come out to the house? We're not going to force our way in the door. That's not what this is about. This is a two-way street. The person is asking for help. We're willing to bring out our professionals. So this person might be the person that's doing it, but it might not be them because they're now doing something and allowing our social worker to be the one to go to the house. So it's kind of, we're trading slots and whoever has the best relationship, but we might go and help and say, okay, so here's the routine in the morning. We're going to walk through it with you. You're going to get up, you're going to eat your breakfast, you're going to brush your teeth, you're going to do your hair. This is where we're going to wait for the bus. Going through some of those routines. Sometimes kids need that help and parents need the help to say, yeah, this is what I'm saying, but it's another person helping through that process. So it's a simple example, but it's needed. And we're not going to do a lot of home visits. It should be rare, but there's a lot of research around support for home visits, but it's got to be safe for my staff. I'm going to tell you that right now, and they know that. And it's got to be a two-way street that parent is looking for the support and that we can help them, because otherwise you're just building walls. That's not what we're looking to do.
Right. And that's what I was concerned about. I feel a bit more comfortable with the understanding that the parents would be involved. And I guess the
Always.
last question I have real quick is, are you noticing the increase in truancy and taking in the factor of the amount of required absences for positive COVID tests and things like that?
So it was, but it's not just that. It's a combination of things. Number one, it's sometimes I just don't feel like going to school. It is illness. And let's face it, if it's illness, that's not the type of student that we're going to be providing the thing that, supports for. It's if they're truly sick, they're sick. We're going to support them academically in a different manner. But I'm going to give you the example of Phil Stevens has his family all get COVID. They're out for a number of days. Then Phil Stevens goes on vacation for 5 days in November and misses more school. Then Phil gets sick again. Then Phil goes to the Big E. Then Phil doesn't want to go to school. All of those things add up to a significant number of days. And sometimes it takes someone to go, we send letters, right? But sometimes it takes someone to say, look, your child has missed 10% of the school year. They've missed 18 days of school. That's a lot of instruction. And so, it's not just one thing, but that's what the student assistance teams and the attendance teams are looking at. What are the reasons? Do we know why? If no one knows why, we're calling parents. What's going on? We're making those connections. And so this person, again, helps in that process.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Donna, I see your hand is up.
Yeah, kind of a follow-up question. Phil, do you know what percentage of our students are in foster care?
Very small, but I don't know the number. It's very small though.
Okay, because there's additional resources for those students.
Yep.
There's called CASA. I'm not sure if you're familiar with it or not, but it would be worth looking into for those students. I know it's kids in foster care, maybe kids transitioning back to their family as they're leaving foster care.
That's the benefit of having, like our social worker has connections, if it's through DCF, a DCF placement, something like that. We ask all those questions. What supports are in place? What can you provide? It's again, a communication thing and so important. And so whatever supports, because we can always provide so much in school, right? And certain things we really can't address in school, nor do we want to. But we want to make sure whatever supports that student needs, if it's something that needs to be done by an outside counselor, that we might need to help that parent identify what counselors are out there that are taking patients. Where are they? How are you going to get your child to ride there? All of those things that can be help. Again, it impacts that student's education. So,
Well, the CASAs are kind of advocates for the kids. They're
Yeah.
not, mental health professionals, but they're an extra set of eyes.
I will look at that.
Okay, seeing no more hands, I think we can move on to new business.
Are you going to
Unless
do?
you want a motion?
Yeah, I would feel better with that, please.
Okay. So we need a motion to accept the grant, including the expectation that we will provide the 30% match in year 3. Ann?
So moved. Is that adequate?
That's fine. Do I have a second?
I'll second, Laura.
Thank you, Laura. Other questions? Okay, all those signify by saying aye or raising your hand.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed signify by saying nay. Any abstentions? Okay, it passes unanimously. Then now moving on to new business, our first item is the approval of the regular meeting minutes from June 2023, which was attachment 3 in your packet. Can I have a motion? And then if there were any changes. Go ahead, Ann.
Okay, I move that we accept the minutes of the June 13th, 2023 meeting.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Tracy Anderson, I'll second.
Thank you, Tracy. Any comments on the minutes? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor of the motion to approve the minutes from June signify by saying aye and raising your hand. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions?
I abstain. I wasn't present.
Okay, if it's an abstention, Phil, and not a nay, do we have to do a roll call vote? Okay, so we will do a full roll call vote. And I'm just gonna go across the screen the way I see you. Laura Rodriguez,
Aye.
Brianna Ross,
Aye.
Ann Grosjean,
Aye.
Tracy Anderson,
Aye.
Arthur Christensen,
Aye.
Sheldon Cunningham, aye, and Donna Cook.
Abstain.
Thank you. Okay. Next is to approve the joint meeting minutes from our joint meeting in May that we held with the Board of Selectmen and the School Building Committee. Those were included in your packet as attachment 4. Ann?
Close the door, please. Sorry.
That wasn't your motion? Okay. Okay, do we have a motion?
I move we approve the minutes from the joint meeting with the school building committee and Board of
Board of Selectmen,
Selectmen from June,
from May.
May.
Okay. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Thank
Anne?
you, Ann. Are there any additional comments or questions on those minutes? Okay, just to be safe, we'll do this roll call anyway, just to go through it. Laura Rodriguez.
I abstain.
Okay, thank you. Brianna Ross,
Aye.
Anne Grosjean,
Aye.
Tracy Anderson,
Aye.
Arthur Christensen,
Aye.
Donna Cook,
Aye.
and Michelle Doucette Cunningham. Aye. Motion passes. Okay, RFP for school facilities study.
So this should be fast. I'm working with Jim Marshall on this RFP for the facility study. I'm gonna tell you, this is it's taken a long time. And I appreciate his feedback. I think we're trying to put forward an RFP that actually captures everything that I think people have talked about. It's almost done. Just between vacations and going back and forth and making edits. It should be hitting the street by the end of this week. I'm hoping tomorrow, actually. I guess my question to you is, do you want a subcommittee to evaluate the responses? I don't know how you would do this with a full group. It might be very, very hard.
We've typically done that in the finance committee.
If that's what people are okay with, and obviously then that would be whatever moves forward. The thoughts could be brought to the board by that group, but I just think in a group of 7, it would be very challenging.
Yeah. And then usually we have to schedule that as a separate meeting. So scheduling is also complicated.
Correct.
Do people have opinions one way or the other about how you want to handle that? If you want it to go through finance or through a separate ad hoc committee? Arthur?
I think this is a fairly large project and a fairly big deal, especially to the town, to the parents, and even to the kids. I would feel more comfortable if there was a separate committee for this.
Just for clarification, while it's handled at the subcommittee to go through all of the responses in detail, they then bring a recommendation with their justification to this full board for discussion again. So it's a 2-step process.
I understand. I still would feel better if there was a specific subcommittee for this.
Okay. Others have thoughts on this? Donna?
Yeah, so are we asking for a company that's qualified to do a reserve study? Because that's what it seems like we want. And for those of you who aren't familiar with a reserve study, lots of times either apartment complexes or condo and homeowners associations have an engineer come in and look at the externals or internals, depending upon what the facility is. And then say, okay, your roofs have this much life left in them. It's going to be about this much to replace them. Kind of like a schedule of when big things need to be done. Not little things like painting a doorway, but the big things: windows, carpets, roofs, siding, brick appointments, chimneys, sidewalks, septic systems, those kind of things. So it sounds like that's what we want. I don't want to label it in the educational world, but
That's what this is.
okay. So have we gotten a list of companies that are qualified to do? I did a little research on my own, and some of the reserve studies that I've been seeing lately, and the company that I've been seeing a lot of people use does not do schools. So I'm guessing that that's a little bit of a different niche. But do we have a list of companies that do that kind
So
of stuff?
that's why we do the RFP. So they have to, we can send it to, I have some companies that I know do this type of work. You can send it to them. They don't get any additional information because it has to be a fair process. It's whoever bids on it and whatever they bid, but they have to follow all of the requirements of the RFP, and if they don't, they have to explain why. The spin on what I'll say you just shared, which is accurate. The additional pieces are, number one, that they're going to make recommendations really for looking at a 10-year process and lumping projects together, and what projects make sense to be done together over a 10-year span, because obviously we know fixing a bunch of things at once, the roofs and ventilation and solar is big bucks alone. And then the other thing that I would say that's connected to this, oh, I lost my train of thought. So is the ed specs, that you have ed specs and that they do take an educational perspective on this. And so some places don't do this type of work for schools because they don't want to get involved in the impact on ed specs, and they, realizing that, there's only summer vacation or April vacation, or what can you do on a weekend, things like that's a little more complex. And so not everyone does that, but that is it's very it's very comprehensive. I'm going to tell you, Jim Marshall has some significant knowledge around this, and his company's not going to bid on this. So we've gone back and forth. We have I have some final things I need to do, and then it's going to be hitting the street. So we'll see if we get 2, 10, or none. I don't know, and I have no thoughts on what the price will be. We'll see from there.
If it's any comfort in the business world, the price of these things has come down a fair amount over the last 5 years. At least the ones I've seen. So they've become affordable when places couldn't afford them in the past.
I hope so.
That will hold true.
Can you say a little more, Phil, about the timing? Do we need to set up a committee today? Is something that we're going to be looking at within a month?
So
Before
if
the
you
September meeting, or do we have time and we can do it in September once we have a sense
So,
of what the time commitment would be?
you have to leave it open for a certain period of time, and it honestly depends on if I can get it out this week, which that's my goal. I'm hoping tomorrow. I just haven't popped in to see how many final edits I have to do. Once it's on there, you typically want to post for a minimum of 2 weeks. My honest answer is, even if I get it out tomorrow, I think you should post it through September 1. And the reason why is summer breaks. People are on those last minute vacations. You want to have the biggest pool of people bidding on this that you can get. And so if you leave it open for a few weeks, there's a question and answer period during that time. And then, they have typically a period of time to submit. And then it's just reviewing them. And some of these documents are 50, 60 pages. So it just depends on what comes in. There's a very structured opening. And so that could be done by the ad hoc committee. And then we can, determine some sort of rubric that we would use to evaluate them. And there's a points assigned actually within the RFP as is. So I don't think it would be a bad thing for people to know tonight that, because we could try and the earlier I know who it is, that I can schedule the dates to go, okay, this is, we're going to meet, and I'll build that into the time frame. Does that make sense?
It does. And you might consider going even further and giving them Labor Day so that,
Yep.
Making sure that everybody's had a chance to, especially when it's that lengthy of a document that we're expecting from them. Are there any volunteers of people who'd like to sit on that committee to review the proposals that come in? And the work would probably then be, I see your hand, Arthur, would probably be in that first and second week of September. I'll sit on the committee too, Phil.
I'm a possibility. It depends upon the timing of things.
Yeah, and ad hoc can be 2, could be 3. It's up to you. So, I mean, if you want to meet and Donna can't attend, that's up to you.
And let's wait and see if we have, 9 proposals coming in and each of them are 60 pages, we may do, 2 groups of 2 rather than having all of us read everything at that point. But okay, so for now, those are the 3 folks that are.
That
Laura?
could be also if you wanted one
Okay.
more an
So,
alternate.
So those are the 4 people to check on the scheduling, and amongst the 4 of us, we will find a time for at least 2 of us to meet and get those things done. before we meet again in September.
Thank you much.
Okay. Next on the agenda then is the breakfast and lunch prices.
Yeah, so you saw that the governor made that announcement about free breakfast for everybody. I think the news ran with it and said everyone's free, and that's not the case. Everyone does get free breakfast, okay? Then what happens with lunch is anyone who is eligible for free or reduced prices, they are all going to be free. And then anybody who doesn't qualify for free or reduced, they would need to pay full price. I'm going to be honest with you, this is disappointing to me from the standpoint of they allowed us to use our fund balance last time to pay for everybody, and now they're saying no. So I'm in a little bit of a battle to see if this is a possibility. But at this point, and again, and I say that because, you know, someone who doesn't qualify may just not qualify. Food is still expensive for everyone. And so, you know, if we can feed kids, if it's going to help learning, I think we should do that. But that's going to be a board decision. So I'm going to recommend that at this point in time, you keep the lunch prices at what it was the last time we had to pay for lunch, which was $2.85. I might have to argue over that too, because they want us to be over $3. And I'm going to tell them I already have told them, we have over $200,000 in our account. Why are we charging kids more? Why are we charging families more? That's just ludicrous. So my recommendation is set it for $2.85 for lunch. You don't have to set a breakfast price. If I get my wrist slapped by the state and they come back and say, no, you do have to raise it. No, you can't you leave it at $2.85, then we'll just come back in September and make the adjustment. But that's what I'm going to request right now. I am trying to get permission to utilize those funds just to make it free across the board for everyone. I've been told, no, we can't do that, but I'm kind of climbing the ladder per se. We'll see if I get to the right person that gives that commitment. So we'll see. But my recommendation is leave lunch at $2.85, and you do need to make a motion for that for 23-24.
Thank you. Donna, your hand's up.
I'm just curious, this may be semantics, but it might get you to where you want to be. That we charge the $2.85 or the $3, if they say that it needs to be at $3, and then we have rebates or coupons or whatever it is that is subsidized, you know, for a period of time by that money.
Donna, that's really great thinking outside the box. Unfortunately, the FDA is super intense about the way they handle all of this, in part because there has been fraud in other districts.
Okay.
So because of that, they're super
Bless the
careful
kids
about that.
with all that money that's sitting there,
Yeah,
and
I agree with you.
you know,
So-
have it go towards the food.
Yep.
And that way, all right.
So in reality, this is a vote for $2.85 as a backstop in case you are unsuccessful at getting approval to let it be free.
Right. And even if you still have to approve a lunch price for the year.
Right. It's a valued at $2.85, even if the funding comes through and it's then free to the families. Right?
Yeah.
Okay, because that affects the reimbursement. So this is not a vote for absolutely what the families are going to pay. This is a vote for setting the price of the lunch for this year. And then there is still the open question of whether or not we will be allowed to offer it for free to families.
Correct.
Is that
So-
clear?
May I make a motion that
You certainly may. Donna, go ahead.
we set the lunch prices for the year at $2.85 per lunch.
Thank you. Is there a second?
A second.
Thank you, Laura. Additional questions, comments? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor of having lunch prices set at $2.85 for this school year signify by saying aye.
Uh,
Nays? Abstentions? Okay, motion passes unanimously.
Thanks.
Okay, next is the question of flexibilities for teacher evaluations for the upcoming year.
Yep, so the State Board of Ed approved another extension. This is going to be the last one, I'm going to tell you, for flexibilities for implementing your teacher evaluation plan. It goes into 23-24. I am advocating for you to do the same thing you've done the last couple of years, to adopt the extension that you approved from 22-23. The state finally approved, they have a plan that for districts during the 23-24 year to create their plans and submit them for approvals for implementation in 24. So this basically buys you time to tweak your plan, meet the state's new criteria, and then you would start your new teacher evaluation plan in 24-25. What I'll tell you is that it doesn't mean there's not evaluations. There's still a process. The union is going to support this just like they have in the past. And basically what happens is they have their student learning objectives that they have to have. And then everyone has teacher, of observations. So it's built into the process. The waiver just allows us to adopt the state plan and do the waiver until our plan is approved next year.
So is this a extension that we have to apply for and then get approved for?
So if you approve it tonight, I just send it in and say, it's just a quick questionnaire. I just have to say that the Board of Ed has requested the extension, and that's the end of it. So you're basically you would do a motion basically requesting the extension of the flexibilities for the teacher evaluation plan.
Okay, thank you. Let's have a motion before there's any additional questions. Laura?
Okay. I move that we, I don't know if I'm gonna say this right. I move that the Board of Ed requests an extension of the teacher evaluation flexibility from 22-23. Is that enough?
Just do 20 through the 23-24 school year.
Through the 23-24 school year.
That's good. Is there a second?
Tracy Anderson, I'll second that.
Thank you, Tracy. Okay, additional questions or comments about this? Sounds like this one's pretty straightforward. Okay, we'll move it to a vote. All those in favor of the motion to request the extension of the flexibility for this upcoming school year signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Nays? Abstentions? Okay, motion passes unanimously. Okay, moving on to old business. The next item on our old business we had brought up at a previous meeting, and we had the question of how for the Board of Education to look at returning to in-person meetings or hybrid meetings or staying on Zoom. And Phil, I believe you did a survey. Can you tell us a little bit about the survey process, who you surveyed?
I'm going to show you. Yeah.
Okay.
So we put out a survey through two things, through the town's website or their email blast. And then it also went out through the school district messenger. And what I'll tell you is that we had 137 responses. It's overwhelming. Community members want hybrid meetings and the ability to participate either virtually or in the room. And so that's what the 72% is. The in-person only was the blue. The limited hybrid is basically that you could watch a meeting through Zoom, but you couldn't participate. That was the 8.8%. And then the remote only was the 5.1%. So you can see people are looking for those, there's almost 100 people said it. 137 is not a bad response, and it's I would say pretty lopsided. We have tested the OWL through Zoom, which is what other boards, as some of you've seen, like school building committee has used the OWL. We actually upgraded the firmware in them so they're not as cloudy, because that was one of the issues. We have raised them up so that people weren't losing their voices. So I do believe it will work in the downstairs meeting room. The only thing I'll add to that is the first selectwoman and I did talk about mounting, which she has funds for through, I think it's through ARPA, a large screen TV on the back wall for the purposes of sharing things with boards. So you don't have to turn around and look behind you on the TV that we have. So when we share something, the audience can see it on the TV that's already there, and then you would be able to see it on the wall out in front of you. So I think the space is would allow for that. The one thing that I would say, if you vote to go to hybrid meetings, is that, and I don't know that you necessarily need a policy around this, but it is significantly harder to read the room when you're looking in two spots. And so I would suggest that if you're going to do this, that it be as best you can to be the board is in the room, unless it's something like, hey, you're sick, but you can still participate from home, or you're on vacation and the only way you can participate in the board meeting is through Zoom. I think those are reasonable things, but I would hope that people would be in the space. So I think it's doable, number one, and number two, we could still record meetings, we could still do all the things we need to do. Final thing I'll say about that, and I think Michelle, you also have had conversations about this. Running a hybrid meeting with all the board in the room is significantly easier than having anybody on in a different setting. What I'll tell you is, in big meetings where there's going to be a lot of unmuting, if you're going to have 50, 60, 70 people in a meeting, right now, I am letting people in and out of the meeting during the time. I think Michelle does as well sometimes. If we're going to have a big meeting like that, I'm hopeful that I don't have to manage that we can find someone that can just do that work. And, you know, pay them for the time. It's not even about doing the minutes. Quite honestly, it's about managing the meeting so we can be as engaged as we can in the room.
So clarification. So the large screen would be, for example, what we would see on Zoom. So when we're doing a presentation, you could put up, for example, the financial report, and what people would see would be that. And then we could also see it from our seats. When you're not presenting anything, would we be able to see the folks who are in the room? Would we be able to see what we see on Zoom now with the blocks?
That's what would be on the TV in the back, correct?
Okay.
And
Right.
anybody who's sitting there. So at least you're looking one direction.
Yep.
For people who are attending the meeting.
Yep.
I think it's important that we are able to see who is in the audience on Zoom, so that we can be aware.
Other thoughts, comments? Donna?
Do we need a motion?
We will. Yep, you can make it now and we'll see if there's a second, and then we will, we can continue to discuss if you'd like.
I'd like to make a motion that the Willington Board of Ed move to a hybrid form of meeting.
Do you want to add to that starting at our September regular meeting?
My question is, when would that additional screen be installed?
That's a
It's
good question.
so that things are feasible.
Okay, we're not going to answer that because we're in the middle of a motion, but
Okay.
we'll say,
So I will-
leave your motion the way it is, the way you made it, without my friendly amendment. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Laura. Okay, now we'll move on to the answering the question. Thank you, Donna. Phil, do we have any sense of the timing for a screen installation?
Honestly, I think it would be pretty quick. It's just going to be a TV. It's running a cable. I don't see it as taking a long time. It's mounting on the wall. I think if you voted on that tonight and wanted to do it in a month, I believe that can be done. If not, I can always email you and say, you have to have the flexibility.
So-
You could also do it on your computer. You could physically be on your computer in the room, and just have your computer muted.
We could put a friendly amendment on it, Donna, at the first meeting, once the screen, after the screen is installed in the meeting room, if you wanted to do it that way. Or
If-
you could set a date and we could bring our computers.
Well, mine is a desktop, so it's not
So
going.
you're not bringing that to the meeting. Fair enough.
And that way, so it's, and I do not have a laptop, so it's not coming with me. Do we have to have a date, or can we do it where Phil notifies us and says, yes, it's ready to go for the September, otherwise it'll be October? I mean, I don't know what it has to be, so.
I think you could make the motion. The motion should have a date specific to it or a time period. So it should be either for our next regular meeting or for September 1st. Or we can just make it for October 1st and give ourselves more time, unless, if you don't want a complicated motion that's contingent on the installation of the screen.
Well, our next meeting would be September 12th, correct?
Yes. So that's more than a month.
So I'm fine with the friendly amendment saying September 12th. I don't know what's more confusing to people, to say it's happening September 12th and then Phil having to email everybody out saying there's a problem, we're just making it October 10th.
If there's a problem, we'll just bring as many laptops as we have and share them, Donna. I don't think it's going to be a huge problem. We could make do. We're a resourceful group.
Okay,
I also could do the meeting upstairs because I don't think anybody meets upstairs on Tuesday nights on Board of Ed nights. So there's already a board up there. We could make it work up there for one meeting if we need to and not have it down here. That would just be on the posting. So I think it's reasonable to do for the September meeting if you want to.
okay.
So Donna, you've accepted the friendly amendment, and Laura, you're okay with that?
Yep.
Yes.
Additional comments and questions? As someone who has run a hybrid meeting in which was hijacked by Zoom bombers, I very strongly request that we have a person who attends our meetings, who is maintaining the Zoom room. Because Phil, for you and I to be doing that at the same time, I don't know if the person taking the minutes would want to do that and then fill in the minutes based on the recording afterwards, or whether they would rather be in the room taking notes at the time and then have a second person running the meeting on Zoom. You could do it either way. It would still be more hours for the person taking the minutes. But I do not think that the people of Willington want recorded meetings that have been Zoom bombed. It's very disruptive and really hurts public participation.
But-
Yeah,
But-
Laura?
Could it be something that the vice chair is in charge of?
The problem is that if you're paying attention to the room and you have more than one screen, you're jumping back and forth on the screen all the time to make sure that anybody who comes into the room, not only are you letting them in, but you're looking at their screens at all time to make sure that nobody is showing anything inappropriate, that there's background, when somebody has background noise that might be inappropriate, that you turn that off. You have to be really fast. And it means you
Right,
really
so you're
can't
saying-
participate fully in the meeting.
Okay, okay.
We have some new folks that are on staff. We always ask the question, are you interested? We'll do the same thing for this position. See if we can get somebody to do that.
Okay. I think that would be really, really helpful, because if one of us were forced to do that, and certainly Laura, a vice chair or one of us could volunteer to do it. I do it for other meetings, but in those meetings, I know that it's really hard to follow the full thought of all of the train of all of the questions, for example. And I want us to be able to participate fully as board members and not as, maintenance.
Zoom managers.
Does anybody think they're going to have a problem being in person as a board member, being able to attend in person, either because of your schedule, your family schedule, your health concerns about being with other people in a public setting or whatever?
I may have a medical issue in October that would allow, I could attend if I were on Zoom, but may not be able to be there in person. But otherwise, I'm fine.
Okay. So I think what I would want then is the commitment of everyone on the board that you will begin attending in person to the greatest extent possible, unless you are physically ill or if you are out of the state. Is that fair?
Mhm.
Okay. Brianna, I didn't see if you shook your head or not on that one.
Right. I should be able to pull it off most of the time.
Fair enough. Donna?
Thank you.
I think I would be fine. If I'm in Willington, I should be able to be there.
Okay, so with the conversation that we've had and the modified friendly amendment is to move to the Board of Education move to hybrid meetings as of September 12th. All those in favor of moving to hybrid meetings by September 12th signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, I didn't see any other hands. Opposed? Nays? Motion passes unanimously. Okay, thank you very much. And we are down to now present to speak. So we begin and end our meetings with time for the public to share their thoughts with us. We ask that you start by identifying your name and address for the record, and keeping your comments to 3 minutes. And we would welcome people to participate either by raising the reactions button or coming on video by turning on your video screen and letting us, waving at us and raising your hand physically. Samantha Sperry, if you want to come off of mute, that would be great. Can she do that, Phil, or do you have to give her permission?
Hi, I'm here. Sorry.
That's okay. Go ahead, Samantha.
Samantha Sperry, 73 Lucian Road. I just have a couple of questions. I'm not sure if I'm understanding the new position that's going to be funded for 3 years by the grant or not. But one thing that I would like to mention to maybe keep in mind is the future. I know that there have been some salaries funded by ARPA funds that have been slowly transitioned into part of our operating budget that it seems like may have some regrets for some of the board members on the Board of Finance. It just becomes an overhead cost. And I think that that's something to take into consideration for a few years from now. Not that it's not a necessary position. I'm still kind of, to me, it sounded a little bit intrusive. But like I said, I didn't really get to hear the whole explanation of what it was for and what the benefits are. Another thing to maybe keep in mind is I have spoken to a lot of middle schoolers transitioning to high school. I'm a big advocate for technical schools. I do scholarships and stuff like that. And I am pretty active with recruiting and just talking, communicating with younger kids. And it's a big transition to go to high school. And I'm just kind of wondering, I'm sure there are families who need help, but this type of help that the state is offering to help fund, I'm wondering if it's a little bit too much that they're not going to get that same help once they go to high school. And if they're getting so much help in middle school and elementary school to, like you said, get their morning routine set up, do this, do that. I mean, that's kind of seems like a shocker or potential to be a big shock that might not be advantageous for the future. A question correlated to that is, are there any repercussions for calling out of school so many days? Like, is there a minimum requirement of days for attendance? Are kids held back? Or I'm not that familiar with those types of standards for our schooling system, but I just kind of had a question about that. If it's possible to be answered, or maybe I can look that up somewhere. Are we pushing the kids through regardless of their attendance? And I know that mental health is a big crisis right now. And I know that it's a really complex issue. I'm not trying to say that I don't disagree that there needs to be something addressed. I'm just kind of trying to think of the overall big picture. I'm happy to see that there's been work on the schools that Phil was talking about. And I guess that's all I have for now. Thank you.
Okay, Nick Telly, your hand is up.
Hey, Nick Teller, 49 Myrtle. I love what Samantha just had to say there. I agree with a lot of what she's just said. I am happy to see the repairs that are being done there. Again, like I said earlier, I do have concern. I think the mental health grant is good. I just have concern about an exit plan. But also, if our students are having a lot of mental health issues, and I personally don't think it's going to dwindle down. Are we in touch with Jeff Gordon and Tammy as far as trying to set something up where the parents' healthcare providers are funding funding some of these mental health advisors and such? Because I think that if these kids need it, that's fine, but we need to start getting funded from their families too, maybe through their healthcare providers and such. And lastly, I'm glad to see that we're going to be going hybrid. So thank you very much.
Are there any additional comments from the public in the room? If you would like to either use the button, raise your hand, or come on video screen. Okay, seeing none, I'm going to jump to, I'm going to note that Donna Cook has left the meeting. So
You got
those-
dumped. She's trying to get back in, but I haven't
Okay.
seen her yet. So
Okay, thanks, Phil. We'll have time now for board comments. Who'd like to go first? Whoever it is who always gets to go last.
I'll start this time. Oh,
Thanks, Brianna, and then Arthur.
I'm quick. Just wanted to welcome the new staff coming aboard. You're going to be happy with this family, I am sure. Thanks to everybody like Mr. Ferlino and Mr. Jensen, who are working so hard on the physical improvements at both of our schools. That sounds really exciting. And I'm just looking forward to a really great school year. So happy end of summer to you all.
Thanks, Brianna. Arthur?
So I did want to say that I am very much looking forward to walking through Hall, and if we are walking through Center as well, seeing the improvements that were made, the changes that were made. I saw what it was like before this last year. Very much looking forward to getting to take a quick tour through there. And I'm gonna stand on my soapbox here for a few minutes. I find it incredibly sad that this state has so much red tape and so much bureaucracy that a town like ours, who has the kind of money to fund lunches for all the kids in their school, can't do it for some probably arbitrary reason. Like, let's face it, it's not going to be, I'm sure there's no hard and fast rule in there that says you can't do it, but there's this rule, which leads to this rule, which leads to this rule. And when there's plenty of evidence to show that the kids who are fed are very more attentive in their education, it absolutely helps to have kids who are not hungry in classes. Why would a state actively stand in the way from us providing that food to the kids? I think it's very sad. It's obviously not a reflection on any of us. It's a reflection on the bureaucracy and the red tape of the state. And I hope that we can get around that. I hope we can find a way to do that this year. And beyond that, I'm looking forward to seeing everybody next month.
Anne, why don't you come off mute? Oh, Anne, you have to come off mute first.
I'd also like to say, welcome our new staff aboard, and also would like to thank James Marshall for helping Phil with all of the RFP writing and exactly whatever it is they're doing together, but his help is very much appreciated. Am I allowed to provide a point of information to Nick's point?
Board comment is open for whatever it is that we want to
Okay.
say. We try and keep our comments to 3 minutes. So if it's
Okay, yeah.
a quick bite.
Yeah, a little, we do have a person that works in the schools who, we provide her with a classroom in each of the schools and telephones. And the rest, we do not pay her beyond that. And the money that she receives goes through her school-based organization. And just as you suggested, Nick, the money comes from either family insurance, or there may be options for children who do not have family insurance. So, thank you.
Thank you, Anne.
Donna Cook is back on the telephone.
Okay, hi Donna, you want to go next since we can't see you raise your hand?
Sure. I don't really think I have too much to add. I just hope that everybody is having an incredible rest of their summer. I've been doing a lot of reading over the summer, so hopefully other people are doing the same. And I am looking forward to seeing the improvements to the school. I'm not quite sure why it's limited to 3 board members at a time, but we can discuss that later. And thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Donna. Laura, Tracy?
I'll go next. I think once you've gone through a few people, you like start with, I don't have too much to add. I do want to wish the folks leaving well, Ally and Tom O'Brien, and I'm not sure who the third person was, and welcome all of the new hires, and just state how amazing it is that we don't have open positions, because yeah, I look also at all of the openings, and that's pretty amazing. I would, what else do I want to say? I did want to say, Arthur, you expressed exactly how I was feeling, the frustration that we cannot use our funds to feed our kids when, as you said, we know that students learn better when they've had a good meal. That's just beyond me. I think that's about it. Thank you. Yeah, Jim Marshall and Phil for working on the RFP stuff and everything that you do during the summer. I can't wait to see the school. I'm really looking forward to Convocation. Honestly had a blast last year at it, and I hope everybody has an enjoyable rest of their summer.
You're off. You're good, Tracy.
Okay, yeah, I just reiterate everything that's already been said. And welcome our new staff. Everybody enjoy the rest of the summer and hope for a successful start to the school year.
Thanks. I'll just close with saying congratulations, Phil, for the successful grant. That's a large grant for a small district. And I just want to note that larger districts have staff who do only write grants. And you are a jack of all trades, not only as the grant writer for all of the work that we do, and I know you apply for a lot of grants and are pretty successful at that, but also at helping to write the RFPs and making sure that the paint is dry and doing all of the facilities issues. So we appreciate the fact that you are a jack of all trades and do everything in your power to make sure that the schools run smoothly and successfully. So thank you for that and congratulations. Thank you all, and we will see you all in person in another month and a couple days. Okay, thanks all. With that, I think we'll take a motion to adjourn.
Oh. So moved.
Thanks. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay, there we go. So the meeting is adjourned. It is 8:40 p.m. Thank you, Phil.
Have a good night.
Night, everybody.